let's move on to, thank you, Paul, and let's move on to our next speaker, who is Victor Lamzin, who again doesn't need much introduction. Victor has been working on the software called wARP for several decades, and an interesting tidbit is perhaps that he has outlined his first ideas about automated model building in ARP exactly 30 years ago at the 1992 study weekend. How time flies. Fast forward 3 decades and ARP has grown into a full suite of software that is far more than building into good resolution maps. It is powerful at low resolution, it can fit ligands, has a nifty viewer, and let's hear Victor, who can tell us more about the latest developments. There you go, Victor.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much to the organizers for inviting me here. It's a great pleasure. Well, you have almost said everything, so I can almost finish. So yes, indeed, it was 30 years ago when I made the first presentation about ARP, but this is before in 1992. At that time, I was at the, I just joined the lab of Keith Wilson at the EMBL in Hamburg, and he was working with the Bishop Dauter and colleagues, trying to figure out what's the best way to refine the protein structures, particularly how to use restraints, tight, relax them. And they came up to the conclusion that restraints should normally be released, let the structure refine, let the atoms go where they want to, and then tidy up geometry at the end. Well, I thought of that and suggested, well, why not release restraints completely? And this is the picture which we published as a result of that CCP4 study weekend in the proceedings with Keith Wilson, which shows I was working on the structure at 2 angstrom resolution. Molecular replacement was pretty far away. You can probably see it in red color. And unrestrained refinement moved atoms quite far, and you see the trajectories. Some atoms migrated far away, had to be removed or became waters. Some migrated to the positions of other atoms. Some extra atoms had to be probably added because there was nothing. And that was, I think, the foundation. What came then, that it became obvious that, like in this pyramid puzzle, also called the Towers of Hanoi, the easiest way to move an atom or a part of the structure somewhere else is not to move it actually, but to delete it and rebuild at a new place. And this schematic picture shows how that could in principle be realized, that a sidechain of tyrosine could be changed to a different sidechain by some atoms added, some moved during the refinement, some removed. And with that, we ended up with a concept of a hybrid model, which is a mix of a probably partial protein model, which provides the stereochemical links between the identified parts of the map. And these restraints should be continuously updated and changed, and a so-called free atoms model of something which flies freely without any limitations to describe the yet unaccounted but prominent parts of the density map. So with Tassos Perakis and Richard Morris, we published how this was applied to the tracing the protein chains in 1999. And schematically, I will very quickly outline it here. Well, very nice density map. What we need to do is to parameterize the density map sparsely with some points. Let's call them atoms. And we place them somewhere, somewhat at a higher density, at some distances from each other. And then we take a group of atoms and try to see whether they resemble any known part of a protein structure. Of course, the atoms are not placed ideally at these points. they are subject to pretty big coordinate error, but nevertheless. And if successful, at least partial main chain could be built, and then subsequently decorated with the side chain. And if this interpretation of the density is correct, then at the next iteration, density will improve, and we will probably build more part of the structure. How this works in practice is shown in this movie, 2 angstrom resolution, and you see that the model expands, and the density where the model was not there is also improving and allows that model to be built there. The red points indicate the free atoms, which were not yet accounted as protein structure. This is the zoom in view. The zoom out is shown here. This is the refinement starting from about half of the structure, and it's from building cycle to building cycle, expands further, and more free atoms are built, interpreted as protein fragments, and here it comes to an almost complete structure. All that is great. So the ARP wARP is pleasingly used as a model building engine for many crystallographic pipelines. And yes, if the structure is built, then probably the phasing, whether experimental phasing or molecular replacement, has been successful. Equally well, we noticed it's been used very often for space group determination, where there was ambiguity. In one space group, the larger part of the structure is traced than in the other. I think what we are completely, I'm very pleased that we had extremely fruitful cooperation with the CCP4 since a decade, and we had 5 joint major software releases. Here they're shown with the latest release 8.0. Well, its updated version was made available in early 2019. And over the 3 years, it was popular. That's more than 10,000 people downloaded it, and they used it at home. There were more than 20,000 model building tasks submitted to the web service at the EMBL in Hamburg. So the web service, I'll just mention very briefly. It was made by Philip Heuser and Igor Sobolev. Several protocols, very easy upload of the structure, change of the parameters, plots and structures coming up as the model is being built, and it's been pretty popular. This is also what's been novelty in the version 8.0 is the application to the interpretation of cryo-EM density maps. And Grzegorz Chojnowski has put a great effort into making that functionality. This is at 3.2 angstrom. The structure and the density map were taken from the database, and the ARP wARP built model is shown in red. And what you see that in some places they are different, and the ARP wARP is probably even better describes the electron density. So it is able to interpret the cryo-EM density maps. These are the 2 more examples. They are from the web service, the viral capsid. Not all of it, but 70% of residues were automatically built with pretty good accuracy, and also a membrane binding protein was built almost completely, also at the resolution just worse than 3 angstrom. I should say that as we judge from the web service, it's probably 5% of the job submissions which are for cryo-electron microscopy. The vast majority is for X-ray crystallographic model building, and of those, probably more than 90% to start from a model, molecular replacement, or maybe the predicted with the AlphaFold or related software, and a smaller part with the experimental phasing. And I guess the use of the models so that they are finely tuned, adjusted, modified to fit the experimental data will only increase, at least in the percentage. Well, this is just the what the novelties in this latest version. I have mentioned already all of them. I will describe a few of them just to give you a feeling. So now one concerns the stereochemistry of protein chain. So I mentioned that the protein main chain is built first, and then perhaps corrected, perhaps joined with the other fragments. And Joana Pereira was working on the new ways of description of the protein main chain geometry. And at the level of dipeptides, using the distance geometry, the multi-parameter description was then eigen-reduced, eigen-decomposed to the 3 dimensions. This is what we call the deep space. And this is basically representing what's in the protein data bank. If you observe a dipeptide connection which is outside, it's probably either extremely unusual and therefore interesting, or incorrectly built. And the 3 main components are shown here, how the peptides are located with respect to each other when they form a protein chain. This was developed also as a validational technique, but it will probably take a while until we fully understand how the best to use it for model building when the chains are built and how the chains could be evaluated and corrected. But just randomly chosen best example, almost 3 angstrom resolution, a model which was built with the standard ARP 8.0, and a model where this dipeptide stereochemistry evaluation was turned on, almost 50% more residues. So it is promising, it is interesting. The other novelty is the ARP wARP is printing out the diffraction intensity Faloff. So the one which is for this data and the one expected. The expectation is taken from the best data collection strategy developed by Gleb Burenkov and Sasha Popov. And well, this kind of curve indicates that data are good. This one probably indicates that the data are not good, so you may not expect necessarily too much from attempts to build a model in the map generated from this data. And but sometimes we have seen the following: the data, they normally fall down as the resolution increases. Well, and this curve, it goes almost horizontally. Well, you would suspect the structure would diffract to almost resolution of small molecules. No, this is the artificially sharpened electron density map, which was the case for at least early electron microscopy maps deposited to the database. And what we do in our ARP analysis automatically is that the data are in essence blurred by bringing this curve down to what is expected for this typical resolution for crystallographic structures. And what happens with the density, it becomes more continuous, more structure could be built, more protein chain can be traced. So this is also proved to be interesting and helpful. And the other novelty which is interesting, and this was mentioned already once at the earlier presentations, that we have we had a case where the data could actually be artificially extended. So if you look at this diffraction intensity Faloff, then it goes down, and I think it was the group of Carmela Giacovazzi which some years ago said that truncated the data at a certain resolution, we basically assign all the structure factor amplitudes the value of 0, while we expect that it would somehow go smoothly down. And the question was why 0 is better than any other number. George Sheldrick has then realized this in his software as the free lunch algorithm, and we tried to do something related in our work, which we call the faking the data, by artificially extending it also to a higher resolution. So
one minute remaining, Victor. 1 minute.
Oh, good. So the case is that a model which was a poor molecular replacement, it was built when 100% complete. It was built completely. 80% complete model was built with difficulties, and when we turn on this fake data option, again the full model was built. There is another example of the case when the wrong sequence was used. This was again the case when the molecular replacement solution was not accurate. We had difficulties getting more than 2/3 of the structure. I thought the sequence was wrong. And built-in model with no sequence wasn't really very much successful, but here I took an effort, went manually through the density, made up the sequence very imprecisely, big, small, and periodically was updating the sequence. It converged the correct sequence, almost complete structure was used. So basically, having a side chain, which is not necessarily correct, is better than having a correct but removed or being in a different place. I'm finishing with this, that we all know that in the beginning there was a crystal. And there was also a crystallographer who was trying hard to solve the structure. And he used various approaches and various efforts, and not necessarily all successful. Was continuing trying hard, not very much success. Was thinking a lot, was thinking of applying different methods, really trying the best. The structure was really difficult to determine. This is the effect of solvent flattening, which you could see, which was also did not help very much. And the question obviously arises. Consulting a supervisor is the very best idea, and here is the way to proceed. Use ARP wARP. So this is the ARP wARP, and you launch it. You launch it just like that. Yes, like that, and it starts tracing the chain. You don't have to interfere with that. It will trace until the end of the structure, or at least whatever could be traced in the automated way. And yeah, finish it at some stage. And what you have at the end is a very happy crystallograph. I'd like to mention the people at the EMBL Hamburg who helped in the development of the developed the version 8.0, Daria, Przegash, Philip, Shravia, Joanna, Igor. The great collaboration with the CCP4 core team led by Eugene Chrisinel, and also great collaboration with the RefMag developers led by Garib Marshud. Over the 30 years, there were many people who have contributed to the development to various extent, and that was really great. And here I am coming to the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Victor. We have time perhaps for one question if anyone would like to put something into the Slack or to the Q&A on Zoom. If not, there is still an option to ask Victor questions later in Zoom or on the Slack.